My name is Dustin.
And my name is Jessica.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Here at Popcorn Poops HQ, we produce a movie podcast and commentary track hybrid that may be synced up to whatever film we're talking about or enjoyed as a standalone audio program.
Today we will be watching the 1983 film The Dead Zone, directed by David Cronenberg. If you are syncing this recording up to the movie, go ahead and start the film and then press pause as soon as the Paramount logo completely fades to black.
It's time to start the movie. Syncers, press play at the beep after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So, Dead Zone, take 2. What could I possibly mean by The Dead Zone, take 2?
Meaning we just watched this about 20 seconds ago.
We did, and there was a bit of a technical difficulty, and our audio was unusable. So we are watching this for the second time in a row.
Yay!
And I'm a little bit frustrated, so I've decided to enjoy this film with a beer. So I'm drinking a 9% alcohol by volume triple. I don't know the brand, but it's very tasty, and it will mitigate my frustration, I hope. But yes, we are watching David Cronenberg's 1983 film, The Dead Zone, which happens to be my favorite film by my favorite filmmaker.
But not your favorite film.
No, not my favorite movie of all time, but David Cronenberg is my favorite director, and this is my favorite movie by him. So that probably puts it really, really close to the top of my all-time list. But lots of his movies are way up there. I love most of the stuff he's done. I've only hated one of his films. That was Cosmopolis, that came out a couple years ago. Did not enjoy at all what he was going for there. I could see that he was going for something. I wasn't on board for it, but that's okay. I do love this opening credit sequence right here. I think that the credit sequence itself is very much, if you've seen the movie, it's kind of an interesting visual representation of what the Dead Zone is, what they explain the Dead Zone to be within the context of the movie. And they get into it a little bit later in just one scene toward the end of the movie. They talk about what it is, but if you've seen it, then you can I think you can appreciate the style of this credit sequence a little bit more, where, these photographs there's kind of a slideshow of photographs, and there's black being taken out of the negative space of the words The Dead Zone and the official Dead Zone logo. The official Dead Zone logo. But yeah, it's
and yeah, it's
cool.
nice because it's playing off of The Dead Zone. It's showing us the black, dark.
Now, unlike the Buffy the Vampire Slayer commentary that we did, I know nothing about the TV show starring Anthony Michael Hall.
There was a TV show.
There was. It was a pretty successful, very popular TV show, as I understand it. I've never seen a single episode. So my experience with this movie is 100% this movie, and also, my experience with Cronenberg as a filmmaker.
I'm kind of surprised you've never watched any of the TV show.
No, I'm not interested.
As you love this movie.
I'm not interested.
Why are you not interested?
Because I like this. I like this movie because of the craft that goes into making it. I like this movie for the specific performances that Cronenberg got out of his actors. I'm not interested in seeing this particular narrative translated to the TV medium, because I can imagine this story translated.
What is it, like a crime drama?
Yeah, it's like a supernatural crime drama.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Interestingly, we're seeing the character of Johnny Smith, played by Christopher Walken. In the scene prior to this, he was reading The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, and he assigns them, and actually he comes back, the film actually comes back to the poem of The Raven later on, when it has a bit more emotional significance to the character of Johnny, but we'll get to that when that comes up. He assigns the class The Legend of Sleepy Hollow as reading homework. Interestingly, 16 years after this movie was released, Christopher Walken portrayed the headless, quote-unquote, headless demon that he refers to in that scene in Tim Burton's 1999 film adaptation of that story. So I think that's pretty interesting. He's also obviously playing an English teacher. Stephen King was actually an English teacher before he became a full-time writer. That's
Creative
another
writing
interesting
professor.
thing. Creative writing professor. Same thing. It's an English teacher. Where did he teach?
Oh, I don't know.
A community college?
Or a university or something, I think.
If it was a community college,
It may have been
same
a
as
community
English
college.
teacher.
What?
Creative writing
Excuse
professor at a community college is same as high school English teacher to me.
What?
Is that unfair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Don't you think it's kind of interesting how he looks like Stephen King? How he's with the big glasses and the hair kind of combed down around his head, and he's got a very Stephen King look about him.
He really does. He definitely does have a Stephen King look. And that's interesting because later he has a very Cronenberg.
He does, with the
Look.
hair kind of standing up on end and the wild-eyed stare.
Yeah.
1,000-yard stare. Yeah, it's
Glassy eyes.
So both ostensibly both creators of this movie, Stephen King being the author of the book and Cronenberg as the director of the film, both get to kind of imbue their image
Onto the
main
lead character.
Yeah.
Here he goes, denying.
Oh, interestingly, we didn't say this in take one, but I think take two will inevitably be better than take one.
Because you have a beer.
Because I have a beer, that's the reason. But the film makes a reference to Sleepy Hollow, like we said, but that story is actually also about a school teacher. And in the novel that this is based on, Johnny compares his coma that he's going to go into in a scene or two and subsequent recovery to Rip Van Winkle, which is another short story written by Washington Irving.
Interesting.
And this movie actually has several literary references in it. There's one to Sleeping Beauty later on that we'll bring up. Mm-hmm. But we can see that his character is not exactly what you would expect, or maybe not. I don't know what's normal. Who knows what normal is? But he won't go inside the house because he thinks that they should wait, probably until marriage, to have sex, I guess. So, yeah, he claims his desire to marry her, but he's not going to consummate their relationship yet because, as he says, some things are worth waiting for. I think that's the line.
It's a good old-fashioned guy.
Real old-fashioned guy. And we get a sense for why he is like
And
that.
we get
meet
a
his
drive
parents.
carefully, a very throwaway line that is not so throwaway in this movie.
So it's raining in the scene, raining pretty heavily. And as far as I can tell, the rain basically immediately disappears and turns into fog. Not raining anymore.
Just foggy.
Does rain turn into fog?
Well, I mean, I guess... No, it's
Oh,
raining.
it is raining. It is raining.
It is raining still.
I thought it turned to fog. I guess I'm wrong.
Oh, it looks
well.
foggy also.
Foggy and
Can
rainy,
it be rainy and foggy?
which is a deadly combination.
and night.
And nighttime. That's true. I didn't say anything about her. The actress that plays the love interest, his girlfriend, whose character's name is Sarah Bracknell. I don't know that we ever hear her name. Maybe
Just Sarah.
maybe he called her Miss Bracknell when she came out of the classroom,
Maybe.
like coyly. She's played by an actress named Brooke Adams. And I think she kind of looks like a poor man's Karen Allen. A little bit. Karen Allen being
Karen Allen is who?
Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
And,
okay.
And Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, good.
And also the mom from The Sandlot.
I never saw that.
And Dennis Leary's the dad.
Nope.
And Dennis Leary being from Rescue Me,
Okay.
which is a really depressing show.
Oh, I think
about
we watched a
kids
couple
dying and
episodes
shit.
about
Yeah,
that,
we
and
did.
he gave a kitten oxygen and a little girl, and the kitten survived, and the little girl didn't, or something like that. It was really awful.
No, that whole show is about like children dying and adults dealing with it, I think.
Yeah, that's awful.
Very
I
dramatic.
remember getting sad feelings.
She does resemble Karen Allen, though, doesn't she?
I thought that's who it was at first, actually.
I think she's probably
who I thought it was.
best known for the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Oh,
which
I've seen that.
also has what's his name? Donald Sutherland,
Yeah,
I think,
what's
is
his
in
name?
it. Isn't Jeff Goldblum in that too? I think Jeff Goldblum's in that. I think he's your favorite actor.
Is he my favorite?
He might be your favorite actor.
Maybe he is my favorite actor.
She was also in Terrence
That's a
Malick's
possibility.
from this same year, 1978 film Days of Heaven, which you definitely haven't seen. You think Jeff Goldblum's your favorite actor?
I don't know. I've never really tried to think of a favorite actor or actress, but if he's not my favorite, he's definitely one of them.
He has the distinction of being one of the unconventionally attractive, offbeat, idiosyncratic, even male leads in a David Cronenberg film.
In The Fly. I love The Fly.
I do too. It's a great movie. But he does kind of fit into that mold of weird dudes.
Yeah.
Who
talk really strange.
Who have a very
really weird cadence to their voice.
Distinct diction and cadence to their voice. Yeah. Distinct rhythm to their speaking. And even more so, like an interesting look about them. I said unconventionally attractive because I don't think he casts like patently unattractive people,
right?
But just interesting looking people.
I mean, Goldblum man is weird. Like you gotta with that hair, and
mullet,
like
Brundle mullet.
He is a strange looking man, but attractive? Question mark?
Yeah. There's some certainly. But you think about all the actors that all the male leads that he's cast. He's cast Peter Weller, whose other most famous role.
Which movie was this?
Naked Lunch. It was in Naked Lunch.
Oh, I don't think I've watched that one.
Peter Weller, whose other most famous role was as RoboCop, where half of his face is covered. So that should tell you something about what at least Paul Verhoeven thinks of his looks. You've also got Viggo Mortensen in A History of Violence and Eastern Promises.
And he's one of those too. Like I know everybody because he's in Lord of the Rings. Everyone's like, oh, head over heels for him. But he is kind of weird looking. Yeah. Like he's not normal, not traditional, attractive, right?
Exactly. You've got James Woods in Videodrome. And most recently, and say what you will about his work in the Twilight films. I have trouble calling them films. That should tell you something about them. The Twilight motion pictures. Robert Pattinson.
You mean masterpieces, right? That's what you were.
Yes,
that's the word you were looking
I was looking for. But Robert Pattinson, I think he fits that description.
Yeah, he does.
He's no doubt he's an attractive looking guy. He has. I mean.
So next, Cronenberg's going to start casting Doctor Who actors, right?
Oh my God. The Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh my gosh.
Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be the next David
what's his
Cronenberg.
name? Heddle
Tom
whatever.
Hiddleston. Yeah, Tom Hiddleston and David Cronenberg. All the Tumblr.
This darlings.
British actors. Yeah, all the Tumblr darlings. Yeah, because they're all kind of unconventionally attractive.
They're like if you saw him on the street, you'd be like,
If Alan Rickman were younger, maybe Alan Rickman if he were younger.
Right. Yeah.
That's really hilarious. Genuinely hilarious. Bravo.
Thank you.
Another thing we didn't mention the first time through was the roller coaster scene or at the theme park. In the novel, he actually plays a Wheel of Fortune game that he wins continuously.
Oh, really?
And the novel actually starts and kind of gives you a hint that he's going to have the power that he ends up having.
Right, because we get that
earlier.
Scene with him as a child, right? When he's
playing hockey, which is also was actually a deleted scene, as I understand it, from the movie. They shot it and completed it, but it ended up discarded or on the cutting room floor. But that scene is also reflected later on in the hockey scene that he saves a young boy from, like the ice breaking because the ice is gonna break.
Yeah. No, but when in the book he falls or something, he slips or something, he hits his head, and he doesn't go into a coma, but he blacks out maybe, or he just has like he's disoriented or something, and he stutters. Don't jump it again or something about like that.
That sounds right.
And
we haven't read the book, but this is all stuff that we've read
about the book.
Sure. Wikipedia is our friend.
Yes, Wikipedia. So, and then like the person he says it to gets shocked while jumping a car. later or something like that. Anyways, we get an indication that he is going to have some kind of, or he has the potential for some kind of supernatural psychic powers later in life. Now here we've got the mom. You have some strong opinions about this mother.
What, that her performance is awful?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. She feel as over the top as the two ostensible leads in the movie, which would be Martin Sheen, who comes up only in the last, we only see him for the first time over an hour into the movie. He plays the politician Greg Stilson.
Okay. In the books, again, he's from the very get-go,
the books tell a parallel story of Stilson and Johnny Smith, Christopher Walken's character,
until they converge
from childhood or from their early life until they converge later in life and their paths kind of cross. But the two ostensible leads kind of, Martin Sheen very much so chews scenery. He's very hammy, very over the top, and very, very likable. I think that I love his performance, actually. I think he does a great, great job. And Christopher Walken is very, very Christopher Walken, and which is great for this movie because I think that they should stand out, and they do. They seem like they...
Well, he's not totally Christopher Walken yet.
No, he's right now, he's about 40%, 35-40% Christopher Walken.
Yeah. This is maybe one of my favorite scenes from this movie.
Oh, it's great.
With the fire, where it's his first vision.
This is his first vision.
Where the room he's in is on fire because he's holding the hand of a nurse and he's seeing her daughter trapped inside her house, which is on fire. I love it. I love the bed on fire where he's laying. That's fantastic.
I mean, it just goes to it's kind of terrifying and weird and just
like
so
he looks
strange
like
to
he's
watch.
the wrong size for the bed because it's a little girl's bed. Like it's really the fishbowl bubbling.
And, yeah, it's great.
It's wonderful.
That poor fish.
Oh, oh no, we cooked him.
Delicious goldfish. Hurry up!
Boiled.
I love that.
Not grilled. Did you say grilled?
No, did I say grilled? I don't know cooking stuff. The sweat on his face in that scene was actually a flame retardant chemical that they didn't intend for it to look as dramatic as it does, but it does kind of give a nice effect with him sitting in the bed and sweating.
Yeah, it's nice.
Also, they had to shoot that scene twice. And that's not the kind of scene that you want to have to shoot twice. That's kind of like a one and done deal. Like, let's get it right the first time. There was apparently an E.T. doll on the shelf, and Universal Studios was like, no, none of that now.
For real?
And they were going to sue.
What were they upset about?
I don't know. What are movie studios ever upset about?
I mean,
They're
really,
stick in their ass about whatever.
What's going to happen? Someone's going to think that
intellectual property right. I don't know. It's a weird, sticky world of intellectual property rights and shit like
dumb.
that.
It should be advertising. If I see an ET doll, I think of ET, and then I want to watch ET.
Something that was...
Here we get... You know, it's interesting. These visions happen so fast in the beginning of this movie here. We're only, 15 minutes in? 20 minutes in?
Yeah, they do.
Not even, and we've got this the second vision already.
Oh, it's
the
second
wolf
scene.
Is loose.
Second scene in a row. That's a great line.
Loose.
That was actually our quote, teaser quote for this episode. If you could guess that we were going to do the Dead Zone based on the quote "The wolf is loose," then you're a true Dead Zone fan, and you are one of us. This is a scene where he's grabbed his doctor's hand. The doctor's name is Sam Weizak. I think he says Weizak. That's how he pronounces it. And it's a scene of war. It's supposed to be World War II Poland, as I understand it. And this is Weizak and his mother escaping Poland during the Nazi occupation. And Johnny discovers that through this vision that Weizak's mother is actually still alive, even though she was suspected to have died in the war. Now, something that's interesting about this scene, and also a scene later on with Martin Sheen's character, in some of the scenes and some of the premonitions and the visions that Johnny has, he's actually a bystander. So the first vision that we saw, he was in the bed. He was in the room with the girl.
He was in her bed specifically.
Which could be an artistic choice, but it also could be an actual, maybe a pragmatic choice, a practical choice, like to have him in the room as a bystander and feeling kind of helpless in the face of the things that are happening. But the most interesting thing about the first vision is that it's the only one that happens in the movie that doesn't actually involve the person that he's getting the vision from.
Well, how does he know? I mean, but in this vision right here, he's touching the boy, and the vision he saw was of
the boy escaping.
But he's giving him information that boy, the child, and this adult man who he's touching could not know.
Right, of course. I think that you can suspend your disbelief so far as to believe that he could get that information.
I think I think the rules are that as long as there is like some slight connection through the person, like if it's their family or a loved one or someone that they're connected to, I feel like that's enough.
The interesting thing about the first vision, though, to me, is that in all of the other visions, those people are there in the visions themselves. The people that he's touching, at least they are in the visions themselves. In the first scene where he touches the nurse, he sees her daughter. She's not anywhere near there, and that's happening at that moment. He tells her to go, and he says, "Hurry up!" In a wonderful delivery. I love his delivery. Anytime you can get Christopher Walken screaming, gold. Solid gold.
True.
But it's the only one that doesn't actually directly involve the person he's touching. Now, whether or not he's a helpless bystander seems kind of random in the movie. Like sometimes he was in the first one, he's not in the second one.
When is he again? Which one is he?
He is in the scene where he touches the murder victim and in the gazebo, and he sees her basically from her perspective, the murder of herself. He sees the murderer come up to the gazebo. He comes up there and rips off her top and kills her. And he's standing there, and he's a bystander, and he can't do anything. He actually says something about it. He says, I did nothing. Again, great performance. And then he's a bystander maybe one other scene. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I think those are the only two. So he's in the first vision with the burning room.
Sometimes he's like physically there. And
sometimes he's physically
not.
there, and sometimes he's not. But there's a scene with Martin Sheen later on, and again, our philosophy on spoilers. We said this last time. You shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't seen the movie, so just expect spoilers all the way through this. Or if you don't care, sure. There's a scene later on where Martin Sheen's character, as the future president of the United States, orders nuclear bombs to be dropped on some unnamed country. In the book, I think it's Russia. And in the scene in the movie, Christopher Walken's apparition, or his as a helpless bystander, he's nowhere around. He's just seeing these things happen. But there was an alternate version for the movie where he's actually there as a helpless bystander, much like when he watches the girl get murdered and as he's in the bed in the burning room with the girl. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie. The weird inconsistencies. Like, I know that depending on the movie, depending on how important it is to supporting the theme of a movie, whether or not it's considered a motif of the theme, really affects my enjoyment of a movie, whether or not it's inconsistent. It doesn't really affect my enjoyment here. I feel like we're dwelling on this too long, but
I don't feel like it's that. I don't feel like it's inconsistent, though. I don't, like, you're saying that the mother, that he's touching the mother and he's getting a vision about the daughter, but I don't see how that's different from touching the son and getting a vision about the mother.
But the son was there.
Yes, but he wasn't there to see her escape and to know where she lives in the future.
That's true, but at least he was there.
And he said he knows where she lives now. He knows her name and he knows where she lives.
You're right.
So,
it's a stretch either which way. Yes.
So he can see the present, and we've seen him now see the past, and then he's going to see the future later. So he is Bran Stark from Game of Thrones.
If you've got to take it there,
I do, obviously.
Then by all means, take it to Game of Thrones.
Thank you. I will. I did.
So we get to see Sarah. Sarah's in this scene, and she's cut her hair. So now she is transformed before our very eyes from a poor man's Karen Allen to a poor man's Shirley MacLaine from The Apartment. Is that unfair?
This poor actress.
She does a fine job. I think she is.
She's cute.
Well, beyond that, I think her performance is fine. It's just fine. She does a fine job in this movie.
She
does
is fine.
she does what
But
she's
yeah, she
supposed
does kind
to
of
do.
look like the girl from The Apartment.
She
now,
does look like
except
Shirley MacLaine from The Apartment. Not as cute. Not as cute.
That
I
girl
don't think
is so cute in that movie.
I don't think Shirley MacLaine gets the recognition that she should for being what she is in that movie, and that is the very first Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Ah, true.
And she was that many, many years
Tries to
before.
commit suicide by taking a bunch of sleeping pills.
Yes, very dramatic. Very, very idiosyncratic in her. Of course, thanks to Billy Wilder's script, she's got very quippy, clever things to say all the time. But that's everybody in a Billy Wilder movie.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's part of the charm. But she was that thing years before there was ever a word for it, and certainly years before Natalie Portman ruined it in Garden State.
Yeah.
And years before Chloe Deschanel Zoe Deschanel
Whatever.
Deschanel made a career out of it.
Sure. Fine.
Why am I so afraid of being unfair to actresses? I feel like that was an unfair statement.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You're not a fan of
No.
Zoe Deschanel.
No, not really. Not really at all.
So you can see in this moment that Sarah is very upset, as she should be. Like she just met up with her lover from years ago. Oh, and we didn't mention it, but in the scene where Johnny's parents come and tell him that he has been in a coma for 5 years, have we even said that much? I think we dwelt too much on the world building and the rules of this science fiction fantasy thing. So yeah, he's been in a coma for 5 years. His parents said that. And part of the reason I don't like his mother's performance is her really antiquated speaking style.
Oh, yeah. It's really stilted.
She informs him that Sarah has been married. She married another man. And she says it by saying that she cleaves to another man. Who says that?
Nobody.
I want you to look
Except for this
I want you to
character
look at this
in
room
movie.
of reporters and find the asshole.
I'm gonna guess. Now I could be wrong, but maybe the guy who slouched down in his chair with the leather jacket,
The leather blazer.
right, and then leans forward.
You'd be right.
Oh, okay.
You'd be right.
Wow.
Yes,
Gosh, how did I guess that?
he is the asshole, and this is the first mention that we get of Greg Stillson, and Johnny has no idea who Greg Stillson is, obviously, because he's been in a coma for 5 years.
Right.
But Greg Stillson ends up being kind of the main antagonist, but I don't really think it's a man versus man story. I think this is really a man versus himself.
Then what is so Johnny is our protagonist.
He's our protagonist.
So what's the antagonist?
Johnny.
then? Johnny is Johnny's antagonist?
Well, I mean, the what is it? The three types of story is
I
man versus environment, man versus himself, and I think man versus machine is one of them.
Yeah.
I think this is man versus himself.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, do you not see that? Because I mean,
Man versus
we've
himself.
said this before, but the character of Greg Stillson, played by Martin Sheen, doesn't actually appear in the film until more than an hour into it. And the conflict between Stillson and Smith, Johnny Smith, played by Christopher Walken, appears and is resolved over the course of 3 scenes. He shakes his hand at a political rally. He talks to Dr. Weizak about the morality of... He frames it in the terms of whether or not Weizak would have killed Hitler if he had the chance. Weizak says, of course he would have. And then in the last scene, he plots to assassinate Stillson, but it doesn't actually go that way. But the conflict is resolved. I think if you have a conflict that only crops up and is resolved over the course of 3 scenes that take no more than no more than 15 or 20 minutes of screen time. I don't think that's your core conflict. I think the conflict is Johnny dealing with this thing that he's got. Do you not agree?
No, I agree. It's him dealing with this thing and having to come to terms with it, and also, as we will talk about more later, he's a savior. He saves the world. He's a martyr. We've got a lot of religious themes going through this movie, so clearly we've got like some messianic sort of
it's a little
imagery going on. And so that story, if we're pulling from that story, then we're definitely talking about man versus himself, versus him trying to decide. He's killing himself by using these powers, and he's trying to decide whether or not he's going to keep doing that.
Absolutely. And I think that it even gets a little bit meta as far as like film technique goes. It goes that deep because Cronenberg loves to shoot Christopher Walken in this movie from what is called a God shot. And the God shot is a low angle shot that makes your character look big. It makes them look like a god. Exactly. Makes them look big, makes them look powerful, makes them look intimidating or iconic. And I think that all the things that Christopher Walken is, not just how he looks, how crazy his hair is, the fact that he wears the same black pea coat and he ends up wearing black pants with it, and he pops the collar on it, and he's walking around with the cane and he's limping around. He's a very iconic figure to me.
Yeah, with his Jell-O mold hair and
with his Jell-O mold hair. And I think that his name is even his name even kind of points to how iconic he is and how ironically plain it is. Yeah. His name is Johnny Smith. It's the plainest name that you can pop, but besides like John Doe or John Smith, it's it's John Smith. He is John Smith. They call him Johnny. And
didn't you say Cronenberg hated it?
Cronenberg hated the name. He wanted to change the name because Cronenberg would never name one of his characters John Smith or Johnny Smith. He has his character from The Fly. Just off my head is named Brundle. His last name is Brundle. What? I don't think anyone's ever been named Brundle ever. But that's the kind of character that Cronenberg would create. But Stephen King created this character, and I think that Cronenberg putting his casting Christopher Walken and allowing him to inject his idiosyncrasies into it with the name Johnny Smith is ironically uniconic, which points to the character actually being very, very symbolic in this story and very out of this world, and maybe he doesn't belong here and he's special here, like we were talking about his performance and Martin Sheen's performance, Martin Sheen being more on the scenery chewing side of things. But yeah, he certainly is kind of a messianic figure, a savior figure. He's a martyr.
So if we're talking about, what the antagonist is in that story, if we're looking at it from that perspective, then I guess it is dealing with your own issues and trying to come to terms with what you have to do and deciding if what you have to do is what you're going to do. By the way, the Christmas tree in this scene looks super janky.
The father actually mentions that. It's a little sad, but he says something like that he could never do the tinsel right. He can't do the tinsel right without his wife, who has just died in a previous scene.
Yeah. Okay.
She died very, very over dramatically, and I think the movie's better for having gotten rid of her.
Why was she there in the first place then?
I don't know. I think if you look at the father in the scene where she has a stroke, there's a look on his face like, finally.
Oh, yes.
Jesus. Thank you.
It's over. God. Except now my Christmas trees are going to look like Duke forever.
Speaking of God, Tom Skerritt, a.k.a. Dallas from Alien, has just mentioned God having given Johnny a gift. And
Christopher Walken's yelling.
Oh, solid gold just spilling out of his mouth. Do you hear it? It's a beautiful thing. But this is...
Yelling and stuttering also.
This is his character's rejection of religion.
In this moment right here where he's yelling.
Right here in this moment. And you get the... and I think this ties directly in. This almost feels causal in a weird way of the next scene that happens. And we'll get... when it comes up, I'll mention it again. But earlier in the film, we saw that he wanted to wait to have sex with his girlfriend. He wanted to wait
right.
to have sex with Sarah. And I think that in American culture, you can basically always tie that to some kind of religious restriction or religious ideology.
I think a lot of the time.
A lot of the time, sure. I certainly don't want to generalize.
No.
But I think that was definitely where his character was going. I think that it's confirmed with how religious his mother seems to be.
And we've even got like religious symbols on the plaque and stuff on the wall, and
Right, exactly, in the house.
and the fact that someone who is yelling about God that much clearly had to have been someone that at least at some point believed in God.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you wouldn't be so upset about him.
Exactly.
Not helping you
Yeah,
out.
exactly. If you didn't feel betrayed, then
Yeah.
you wouldn't have any need to get that upset, right?
Yeah.
But, this is the moment where
Oh, your mother. Yeah.
your mother always kept the tree
So I'm a
looking
jerk
good.
for saying the
You
tree
are.
looked
You're
nasty.
you're as much of an asshole as
As the reporter?
leather blazer reporter guy.
I don't think that's a fair
Is it
comparison.
not? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't think that this. I feel like, and you can call me out for it, because as soon as you mention his name, you have to say something nice about somebody.
What?
But Sheriff Bannerman, played by Dallas from Alien, offers this, serial rapist murderer case to Johnny, because they're kind of, as a last ditch effort, they've tried everything they can. They don't know where to go from here. And Johnny, you could say, turns down the call to adventure from...
What are you bringing up Joseph Campbell?
Oh, you said
again?
it. Now you said his name. You have to say
Why-
something nice about somebody.
When did this rule come up?
You don't know the rule? I made it up.
Oh, okay.
I made up the rule. But if you mention that guy, then you have to say something nice about somebody.
No, I don't.
Yes, you just said his name. I didn't say his name. You said his name. You have to say something nice about
beard
somebody.
is very well trimmed.
That's the same thing you said last time. You have to say something nice about someone else that's not me and not about my magnificent beard.
It was my brother's birthday, and he's a nice guy.
Okay, that's good. Just keep that in mind the next time you think about mentioning the guy that you mentioned.
Okay.
He who shall not be named.
I don't see why it's such a
Because
big
it's the
deal.
rule. You don't
It's a
understand.
stupid rule.
His little symbolic gesture right here, I think, is nice, where he hangs up the cane to go meet Sarah outside. He doesn't want to appear weak, but he has popped the collar. He's about 55% walking.
Good. We're going up. We're going up in our walking percentages.
And his
he's got the hair. He's got
his
the
hair
jello
his hair is full on David Cronenberg
Yeah.
right now. So
True.
he has made the transformation from Stephen King to David Cronenberg, at least.
Yeah. Have we talked about the accident yet? I
We
don't think
haven't. Do you wanna
have.
talk about it?
Okay, yeah, let's
Bring it
talk
up.
about that. So I don't know a lot about... I like Cronenberg. This is not my favorite Cronenberg movie. My favorite Cronenberg movie is maybe The Brood,
The great movie in its
followed
own right.
by either The Fly or Videodrome, probably.
Okay.
I've seen
All great
I've seen a
movies.
lot of Cronenberg movies because of you, even some obscure ones, like the
Shivers.
the
Yeah.
one in the
The
apartment
one about all the
complex or
horny
something?
zombies.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
yeah. So I like Cronenberg, but it's obvious why I like Cronenberg, because he kind of falls into the horror genre a lot. This movie, however, I don't know. It's more like psychological thriller to me than horror.
Sure. It's kind of supernatural, psychological
Yeah, and
thriller.
it's
Sure.
just, I mean, it's there enough that like it's on the fringe of what I like enough that I like it, but it's a little too keyed down for me. If I'm going to watch a Cronenberg movie, I kind of want it to be a little more disgusting and gory and
Sure, but even
messed up looking. I like his body horror stuff.
well, I've said this before. I've heard him called this before. He is kind of the master of body horror. This isn't really a horror film, though.
right,
like
right.
you said.
And like I said, the reason I like Cronenberg is because I
think
like his horror stuff.
What he does with horror is wonderful. Of course, I love the things that he does with horror, and I think that you could call. Whereas The Fly is very much on the horror side of things, and this is very much on the psychological thriller side of things. I think Videodrome is kind of in the middle there. Like it has the horror elements, but it also has the psychological thriller and drama elements to it. The thing that I love about Cronenberg, and the thing that makes me a huge fan of him as a filmmaker and as an artist is that he doesn't shy away from showing you what he intends to show you, but he doesn't embellish upon it either. Everything that he shoots is very matter of fact. It is presented at face value. It is what it is. And it is so apparent that he's doing it that way that it doesn't come across as boring or artless, which I think that in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, that kind of aesthetic choice or that aesthetic manifesto, if you will, kind of the decision to do that the dogmatic decision, if you will, because all of his films look the same. They all have a visual style, just like Martin Scorsese. You can pick out a Martin Scorsese film by just watching it. You can pick out a Steven Spielberg film just by watching it. And you can do the same thing with a David Cronenberg film. And it's all
kind
in
of
how...
because of the lack that there is
because of the lack of style.
In frills and bells and whatever.
His lack of style is his style, but it is not an artless lack of style. You can see Cronenberg in his movies, and I think that's, I think every great auteur that is true of.
Anyways, what I was saying is that unlike you just proved yourself to have a lot of knowledge about Cronenberg, I do not have a lot of knowledge about Cronenberg.
Right.
I just like a couple of his movies. However, I do know some things about Stephen King because I like Stephen King.
I see.
And I have not read The Dead Zone.
I haven't either. I've heard it's really long.
Yeah. But this isn't one that I would go to again because if I'm going to Stephen King, then I'm going to go to Stephen King for, The
Stand.
Pet Sematary and Cujo.
The Dark Tower.
And Carrie and right. So anyways, info about Stephen King with car accidents.
Oh, yeah, I heard something about this.
Okay, so this
Break
book
it down.
was written in 1979. Okay.
Or it was published in 1979, yeah.
Right. Published in 1979. In 1999, however, Stephen King had a very serious car accident. And this car accident was so bad that he almost went into retirement. He had one of his lungs was crushed, I think. He had a lot of broken bones, including a leg which was shattered so badly that they almost amputated it.
Wow.
So and he was, how the accident happened is he was just walking down the road in Maine where he lives, and he got hit by
He lives in Maine? You don't say. I would have no idea
from the locales of
we'll talk about that a little bit.
All the books ever written. Anyway, and he got hit by a van, but it's interesting how you could have fooled me that these books were written before his accident rather than after, because he has so many books which have car accidents as a major turning point in someone's life. Now, granted, car accidents are like the go-to cliche, I don't know what accident. Well, a lot of people have car accidents, so, it's the go-to for that. So I don't think it's that weird that he has car accidents in his books. It's just kind of interesting that, there are so many similarities to him in this character's life. Like we talked about him being an English teacher. He looks like Stephen King at the beginning of the movie, and he has a car accident, which changes him.
And so this character has a car accident, which affects how he walks. But not only that, but he has other characters in his works.
Yes, so like in Misery, which is the one that really freaks me out because, and Misery was written in.
This is my favorite shot of the entire movie, and maybe my favorite shot in any movie ever.
Yeah,
the tunnel
really
right
fantastic.
Here, it's amazing.
The light coming off the walls and stuff.
It is just amazing.
And you said they sprayed down the walls with water?
I think they did. And
shot?
This movie was shot during a really a historic freeze in this area. This was shot in Ontario, Canada, near Niagara Falls. And it was shot during a historic freeze, so very, very cold. And
So they had all this ice all over
imagine
the
they just
ground
sprayed the walls and it just froze and created this amazing reflective surface for the movie lights that are just probably
Yeah, it's
just
really haunting and
outside
beautiful.
the tunnel.
We'll go ahead and talk about the tunnel, and then we'll come back. We'll come back to Misery.
Okay, this tunnel has a nickname. It's called the Screaming Tunnel, and it's in Niagara Falls, Ontario, in Canada. And there are a couple of local legends surrounding the tunnel. One of which says that it's haunted by the ghost of a young girl who, after escaping a nearby burning farm, enters the tunnel and dies inside it. There are also several variants of the legend, one version of which has the girl set on fire by her enraged father after he loses custody of his children after a nasty divorce. Another tells of a girl being raped inside the tunnel and her body burned to prevent any evidence from being found. But all of the variants they have one similarity, and that is if you strike a match within the tunnel's walls, it will produce the sound of the young girl's dying screams, which is where it gets his name, the Screaming Tunnel.
And we've got, obviously, they're making a reference to the history of this tunnel because we've found a pack of cigarettes in this tunnel.
Where the sheriff said that the serial killer was waiting for a young girl, and a high school girl, and she comes in, and they found a bunch of cigarette butts, which they don't say matches.
So we've
and
got
it's not
young
that
girl
on the nose.
screams, and we've got something being lit, possibly by a match.
Exactly.
It's nice. It's nice.
It's
nice
very aware
allusion to
the local legend.
local lore. Yeah,
Sure, absolutely.
That's fun. That's really fun. And also, this tunnel is fantastic. I am pretty sure where was it? I think it was in Gunma a few months ago. I went on a tour up to Gunma.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't come with me.
I did not.
And we walked through a really long, dark tunnel. We didn't go all the way through, but it used to be a train tunnel that's not used now. And it kind of reminded me of that. It was really haunting. And we didn't talk about it, but this character is very possibly based, at least in some ways, on a real-life person.
That's true.
A
Yes.
self-proclaimed psychic named Peter Hurkos.
Mm-hmm.
So this psychic, I guess he fell off of a ladder and had a head injury.
Okay. Like Doc Brown in Back to the Future?
Sure.
Did he invent the flux capacitor?
He did not. What
Okay.
he did is he apparently got psychic abilities after falling off the ladder.
The second best thing
Right.
to the flux capacitor.
Yes, second best thing to flux. But there wasn't... Did Doc Brown hit his head on a toilet or something?
Something like that. The edge of a sink. He was hanging a clock. And he
So-
slipped and hit his head on the sink. And when he came to, he had a vision. A vision in his head. A picture of this. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So he became a self-proclaimed psychic, and he was a special kind of psychic. He practiced, I don't know how to pronounce it, maybe psychometry.
Okay.
He was a psychometric psychic
Sure.
or something like that. Basically, it just means you touch things that belong to people and you get a vision.
Oh,
or
kind of like what Johnny
he
does
just,
in the movie.
Right, but Johnny touches people. And
That's
this
right.
guy touches...
Actually, they make a point. They just made a point that he was
that's
touching
what I
the
was
pack
saying.
of
With
cigarettes.
the cigarettes,
Yes.
he didn't get a vision off of the cigarettes. He held the pack.
Oh, this right here, Johnny reacting and having when he
we're in
recoils.
the gazebo right now.
right,
and-
we're in the gazebo when he recoils and has these visions. That's actually Cronenberg firing a .357 Magnum full of blanks just off camera, which is such like a crazy director thing to do.
Yeah.
It's interesting though because as I understand it, it was Christopher Walken's idea for him to do that, and Cronenberg's like, sure, why the hell not? But I think Christopher Walken probably, we mentioned The Apartment already, Shirley MacLaine. I think Christopher Walken probably got that idea from a legend about Billy Wilder on the set of The Apartment, where there's a scene in The Apartment where Shirley MacLaine's character's brother-in-law comes to the apartment and finds her character, in Jack Lemmon's character's apartment, and he gets upset and he punches Jack Lemmon and she reacts and she recoils and, she has shock on her face. And apparently the legend goes is off camera, Billy Wilder, the director, was he smacked together 2 2x4s to get a genuine reaction out of her.
Right.
So why wouldn't you up the ante if you're Christopher fucking Walken
Right.
and David fucking Cronenberg?
Right. So of course you got to shoot a
You gotta
gun.
shoot a fucking hand cannon, of
Yeah,
course.
of course. Of course. Yeah, so this is one of the visions where he's actually present.
Yes, this is one of
You know,
2
and-
that we see in the movie, 3 that were actually planned. Like, as I understand it, that version of the scene at Camp David later with Martin Sheen's character where he fires the missiles, I think they actually shot it, but they edited it in such a way that they
he was
cut
not
him out of
in
it.
it.
Maybe. Yeah.
Why'd they take him out of it? I kind of like it when he's there. Oh,
this
we
a-
got some boobies
We did
here.
get some. Is this our first movie with boobies?
Maybe.
I think this is our first movie with boobies.
Oh, this is a historic moment.
For the popcorn poops. Popcorn,
Really? Have we
popcorn
not had any
boobs.
boobies yet?
I don't think so. First boobs. First movie boobs. Movie boobs are the
Yay,
best
movie
boobs.
boobs. Great.
But what were you saying about Stephen King?
No. Before that, I was talking about the cigarettes, though, and I just wanted to make the point that he clearly does practice psychometry or psychometric.
No, because he has to touch
psychic.
the person, even
Yeah.
if they're dead.
And they made that very clear, and I just think that's interesting because it's a possibility that this character was at least loosely based on this real life person, but they make that distinction where they say, but he's different, at least in this, major way right here. I don't know. It almost seems like kind of making fun of the other guy a little bit, the Peter, whatever his name is, Herkos guy, because it's like, no, not a pack of cigarettes or a wallet. You have to touch the person, of course. Don't be silly.
Yeah. What were you saying about
Misery?
Stephen King earlier? Misery and all that stuff?
No, well, what I was talking about is just that it's creepy that this book was written so long before his car accident, when there are so many parallels to him, at least in the
It is.
in the
and
movie.
Also, because this movie also was made many, many years before his car accident. And yes, of course, he wrote the story, but like they even make a point to make Christopher Walken look like
Stephen King
in the first part of the movie, and then he has a car
Right, I
accident,
think-
which affects his walking.
As a guess, I would say this movie is maybe a little creepier than the book itself, even in those parallels.
yeah.
But anyways, the one that really freaks me out is Misery, because Misery is about an author where and if you don't know, in 98, I think it was in 98, Bag of Bones came out, and Bag of Bones was the first book that Stephen King edited himself.
As I understand it,
Right?
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
So he was kind of making a change in the way he wrote, in the way he was marketing his stuff. Like, he was changing his writing very drastically, and I mean, firing an editor would do that. So in Misery, we've got an author who is wrapping up his series, his romance series that he's had going on for however long, and he kills off the character in the end, and he wants to get into like mainstream novels, and he writes
Right.
something called Fast Cars or something, I don't know, whatever. But then he has a car accident where he shatters his leg, and a
So
crazy
weird.
woman gets upset, and you know how that goes with
I have
the
a-
hammer and the foot and so on and so forth. But
It's like he predicted all. Like it's
Right?
it's weirdly prescient.
It's
I have a question
weird.
for you. Is Stephen King a wizard?
why not?
Okay,
Sure.
he's a wizard.
We'll go there. We're about to see the one moment in this movie which makes this movie
Very distinctly David Cronenberg.
very distinctly David Cronenberg, and which pushes it into that fringe of horror that for me then says, okay, this is a Jessica-ish
Yeah,
movie.
close enough to horror that.
right?
So he sets up the killer.
Oh, God, it's awful.
They found the killer whose weapon of choice is scissors.
And not, like good old sharp
And he's
scissors, but
locked
like the
himself
kind
in the
that
bathroom.
pinch.
Exactly. Locked himself in the bathroom, sitting in the bathtub with a big rubber coat on, and he's set up the scissors like open, like so there's two blades sticking out.
And like propped it against stuff on the bathtub.
Yeah, so that he can like put his hands behind his head and smack his face, open mouth, into the scissor blades and kill himself.
Right. So it'll
The
go up
like the
into the
most-
soft palate, like on the roof of his mouth.
It's like the most inefficient way of killing yourself. What?
It's really terrible. But you remember my little brother had a terrible
Almost
injury
close call.
with the soft palate on the. It was a recorder, not a pair of scissors.
Didn't the
thank God.
doctor say something like if you penetrate the soft palate, then you'll bleed out?
I don't know about
that.
that, but I know that if like the recorder had gone up any farther, then he would have died
Oh my
instantly.
God.
And yeah, that was a traumatic moment in my childhood.
Oh, it's so gross. It's so gross.
Oh, it is.
We didn't say anything about all of the Reanimator green lighting in the house. Which
Yeah,
thi-
it did
all
have
of,
Reanimator
all
green.
of this
Not
stuff,
Matrix green.
not Matrix.
We need to clarify.
Matrix green is a filter. Reanimator green is
Use
lighting.
green lighting.
That's
yes.
right.
Let's be specific here. Or any green glowing liquid,
Sure.
if there's any
See,
imagery
like
of
this
that,
hallway is Reanimator green.
then- yes, Reanimator green.
We also mentioned Reanimator green in Beetlejuice in our commentary of
Beetlegeist.
Beetlejuice. Beetlegeist. Oh man, that was really gross though, and I think that there's a little squib. God bless squibs.
Squib?
A squib is the explosive blood pouch inside
Ah.
that makes gunshot
Yes.
wounds in movies. I am 100% against CG blood squibs. No. Practical blood squib.
No,
Practical
why?
everything.
Why? I don't understand with things like that. I get it if you've got something really difficult to do. I get wanting to use CG for it, but I mean, on something like as easy as blood, you can make that stuff in your kitchen. So why?
Sure.
Why would you CG something like that?
I don't know. It's silly.
And practical gore makeup is so easy and it's so fun.
The last thing about that house I want to mention is that I think it is the most visually embellished chunk of the movie. I think it's with all of the weird green lighting and all of the colors and like the weird blood, like the
Even
the
before they go
violence.
into the house, like there's this weird ominous glow coming out of the windows.
Yeah,
and
there's a
stuff.
sense that something.
It's not
out of
green
the
either.
ordinary.
It's orange.
They never go back to it though. Like that's the craziest the movie gets visually, and I think it and that is really to me the end of the second act. If this is a 3-act film, as many films are, the end of the first act I think comes when after he has sex with Sarah, and we didn't mention that, but she gives him a little bit of a pity fuck, a mercy jump, if
Yeah.
you will.
mercy jump.
And after that, he's watching the sheriff on TV talking about the
Can you give
murders.
a little bit of a fuck? Can you?
Just the tip. You set me up for that. When he makes the decision to help the sheriff find the murderer, I think that's the end of Act 1. I think that's the act break. When he finds the murderer, and then we get the rest of the movie with, Greg Stilson's going to come up, and it's basically the last half hour of the movie, something like that, last 40 minutes of the movie. I think that's all of Act 3. So we've just had our act break, and we're officially in the third act, the last act of the film. But now he's talking to Weezak again, and Weezak is Will mentioned that it looks like his power is draining him, that, he's been doing some research on this strange ability that Johnny has, and he wants him to come back to the clinic, but Johnny doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want to be on medication anymore. He just wants to be by himself. He wants to be alone, and he wants to teach the kids that he's got. He's a tutor now.
Yeah.
And we'll see that. See, he says it here, no more pills. And yeah, I mean, that, of course, all that stuff contributes to his character. And he's talking about how he's getting worse now.
Yeah. It's draining him. It's literally using his powers is using them, or just, I don't know if he actively even tries to use them. Just having this, bestowed upon him is killing him. And I think that's a lot of what helps him make his decision by the end of this movie, where he's just like, I'm dying anyways. The girl I love is in love with someone else, is married to someone else, has a baby. Why bother?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. In the book, from what I've heard, it was actually brain damage that is killing him. Like as he uses his powers, that it's maybe a tumor is growing or something like that, or it's irreversible brain damage. So yeah, there is that sense of his imminent mortality. You know,
they haven't talked about it yet. They haven't openly said it, but the dead zone is to me, I've always felt like it was a dead part of his brain.
Yeah,
like literally a dead zone in his head. That image at the beginning with the credit sequence or not the credits, but the
so like maybe
the title card, like they're black parts, like you can't see, it's gone, it's not there, it's dead.
Well, much like, you know, they say that if you lose one of your senses, the rest of them get stronger. So if you lose part of your, you know, brain capacity, do the other parts of your brain get stronger? Is that where his power comes
so
from?
what did
Like,
he
it's hard to
lose
say.
then,
I'm not
though?
sure. This is kind of a powerful moment right here where he's showing Weezak a closet full of letters with, he says, lost dogs, lost children, people who have died, from people who saw that he helped the police find that killer, and they're asking for his help. And he can't do anything for them. And he has to live with the fact that people are hurting out there begging for his help, and he can't do anything for them. Until he does something that is a once and for sure final piece of closure for him, in that he can do something that will literally save the world. He can save everyone in one fell swoop.
Why doesn't he try to help these people? Why do you think he doesn't do that? I mean, if he's got...
He just said it. He said that inside his house, he's safe. The one time that he went out and tried to help someone, he got shot.
He got shot, right.
Yeah. So.
And he's not the character yet that he's going to be at the end of the movie, which is the guy who realizes or decides, I guess realizes is too strong to say about someone else, but he decides that how he's going to use this has to be completely unselfish, and it doesn't matter what happens to him.
The girl here was reading from Sleeping Beauty, which is, you know, kind of apt.
Right.
Another literary reference. You know, the fact that he was in a coma for 5 years.
Yeah, of course, except that, you know, he does something in this movie, and Sleeping Beauty just
is a protagonist that
sleeps.
sleeps for the entire time.
Good, strong female characters to give our young girls as they grow
You're
up.
beating a dead horse. It's been talked about.
Yeah, I know.
at
We've
length.
got other movies that are mediocre to make up for it.
The social justice warriors on Tumblr don't need any help.
No, they don't, and neither does Maleficent. That piece.
I didn't see it.
It wasn't that bad, but it was kind of like way too over the top, like in the other direction.
So here we've got a character who has come to ask Johnny to help tutor his son, who is very introverted and won't participate in school. And, you know, Johnny makes some mention of the fact that he doesn't go out. Like he doesn't go to other people's houses. He tutors inside the house. He doesn't operate like that. And you also get the feeling that he doesn't drive post-accident. Like that's one of the things that he just can't do. Like he can't really walk that well. He walks with the assistance of a cane. I don't know if he can't drive or if he just chooses not to because of the accident.
A fear of driving.
But whatever the case, the offer includes having a car sent over for him to the boy's house. And as soon as that happens, you get the sense that the boy comes from a very wealthy family. Well, you can see right here. There's the car.
By looking at the car, yeah.
That's probably like a Rolls Royce or something, and he has a driver.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the first time we get to see Greg Stolson's face, or one of the first times.
Billboard,
On the billboard
mobile billboard.
Yeah, they're building a campaign poster just across the street from Johnny's new house because he's moved out of the house from his father, who I guess probably was getting harassed by people after the whole.
So he is
Castle
living
Rock
here
Killer
by
thing.
himself then.
Yeah, that's
so
we're led to believe, yes.
So at the end, when we see the plaque on the door,
It says J. Smith Private Tutoring.
No. I'm talking about the
back at his father's house.
Oh, is that at his father's
Yes.
house? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that comes up later. And this is the first time we get to see Martin Sheen as the politician running for Senate, Greg Stilson, with his everyone in a leather jacket in this movie is an asshole.
Yeah.
With his,
that's like the bouncer guy, right?
Yeah,
like
his heavy, his henchman, if you will. Probably just bodyguard, but yeah. He's spinning a web of bullshit right now, as politicians are prone to do. But there's a little interesting moment here, this little diversion where
he doesn't get the vision because he gets a campaign button instead.
That's right. So he holds out his hand to shake Stilson's hand. Stilson plants a campaign button in it, and he doesn't get the skin-to-skin contact that seems to be necessary for the
we got a little glance there from his bodyguard, from Stilson's.
Oh, did we?
Stilson's
Did you see
guy.
that?
Yeah, he got a little glance that he gave to,
like, you look like a weirdo.
or like a maybe he recognizes him. We could guess that he recognizes him as the guy who has those visions on TV.
They do, and we didn't talk about this before, but Stilson's character in the book started as a Bible, door-to-door Bible salesman.
They don't do that here, which I guess we didn't have. He hasn't been a part of this movie the way that he is in the books.
Right. Well, like we said in the book is a parallel story that takes place from when Johnny is very young and Stilson is very young.
Or younger, at least.
Younger, all the way up until their paths cross. So it's kind of two stories woven together toward the end.
And what we get in the books is we get this knowledge that I guess he was a Bible salesman. And I think that's kind of interesting, only for the fact that Stephen King he's got a thing about writing evil Bible salesmen.
What else did he do it in?
Men who peddle Bibles and are
What else
actually
did he
really
do it
bad
in?
guys. Maximum Overdrive.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah, you love it. If you don't know Maximum Overdrive, then
Oh, I know it.
then please
I wish I didn't.
go get yourself. I think it's on Netflix right now.
I think it is.
So please go enjoy that. It's
Make sure you have lots of alcohol or other items.
Inebriating substances.
Things that can get you messed up.
Maximum Overdrive is a movie directed and written by Stephen King. It's based on his short story Trucks from his first collection of short stories called Night Shift.
Trucks.
It's loosely based on
I
it.
always get this story mixed up with Christine, which is just
Christine
about a car.
is just about a car,
Okay.
and I think the car is possessed by a girl or something like
Right,
that,
like
something, whatever,
Christine.
or the car is just evil or whatever. But this story is about, at least in Maximum Overdrive. I think I read Trucks when I was a kid. My mom was really into Stephen King, and she had a bunch of hardcover copies on the shelves. And I think I read Trucks, but I don't remember. Anyways, in Maximum Overdrive, all of the machines in the world turn evil against humans, and they have like a consciousness. And so you've got lawnmowers like chasing down puppies and killing them, and soda can machines
Really over the top.
shooting Pepsi at people's groins.
I tried
and
to watch
heads
that
until
movie
they die.
with you, but I fell asleep because it was just too dumb to stay
I don't
conscious
understand
for.
how you fell asleep in the middle of a movie with a score by AC/DC.
It was easier than you think.
That is as I understand it, the album that came out for that movie is the first time that Hell's Bells and You Shook Me All Night Long were released.
What about Highway to Hell? That seems like the obvious one.
I don't know.
Like highway, like a thing that trucks drive on. No?
I don't know. It maybe that was on a
Damn
album after or
Okay.
before. I don't know.
I'm disappointed.
I don't really know
I'm
that much about
disappointed
AC/DC.
in AC/DC and Stephen King and just everyone.
Anyways, this was Stephen King's masterpiece. We all know.
I guess if it's
Directorial
your only
debut.
film,
To his credit, he calls it a moron movie and says that he was coked out of his mind and had no idea what he was doing while filming it.
yeah, well, you could say the same thing about Brian De Palma, and he made Scarface.
Stephen King promised not to make any more movies.
Thank you for that. At least he's a considerate man.
But getting back on track, there is a Bible salesman in that movie. I don't know if the short story has a Bible salesman. I don't remember. But in Maximum Overdrive, there's a Bible salesman who picks up a girl who's a hitchhiker, and he tries to grope her in the car. And she gets out of the car, and then he gets killed by one of the evil trucks or something. Anyways, so yeah, Bible salesmen are evil in Stephen King's world.
Well, I mean, and religion, obviously we've talked about religion in this movie, and Christianity in particular has a place in this movie. We've talked about Johnny as kind of a Christ metaphor, and that does become a lot more apparent later on when he actually is a martyr and actually does like literally save the world. But then you've got Stillson as kind of the false Christ, the Antichrist, if you will, you know, the one who claims to be very religious and says very like over the top religious type biblical sounding things. He walks out of the man's house that we saw him in the first scene that we saw Stillson in. He walks out of the house and says something about, what a glorious day, and his henchman comes up behind him and goes, "Amen." And in
the very final vision,
yes, in one of the last visions of the movie where he sees Stillson launching the missiles.
It's the last vision, isn't it?
No, there's one more that he sees with Stillson.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the second best line in the movie. Second or third best. The wolf is loose is way up there. Good. And then the ice is going to break.
No,
ice is going to break is number
obviously
one.
Number one.
Okay, ice is going to break is number one. Then maybe the wolf is loose, and then he says the missiles are flying. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Which again ties into that kind of religious through line. And I think it's interesting that they cut out him being a Bible salesman
because they kept those themes. Like they kept all of the connecting themes and like. Character traits and stuff like that. I mean, only someone who at least was around religion or pretended to be religious or was religious or something like that would use phrases like hallelujah, hallelujah.
And I think like in the book, Stillson does something when he's young. Like they establish him as a Bible salesman, and then he does something like he kicks a puppy to death.
Yes.
Something.
He takes his anger out on a poor little puppy.
This is a really interesting scene to me because I don't think that it's 100% necessary. I don't think it has any purpose other than showing us that Stillson's a dickhead.
This is the scene with the reporter.
Like an evil asshole, yeah. So he's talking to the reporter. He was blackmailing the reporter or the editor of the newspaper or whatever, because apparently the editor of the newspaper has some incriminating evidence against Stillson that he's going to publish, some kind of photos or something. When I rewatch these for the podcast, I try to pay attention to all the little story details and try to find plot holes and dumb stuff like that. And they never really explain what it is exactly that he has, like what the editor has
on Stillson.
On Stillson. But you get the impression that Stillson has incriminating photos of the editor of him in an affair with a woman that's not his wife. So he blackmails him. And I think the entire purpose of this scene is to show that Stillson's a dick who is willing to actually not only blackmail, but he says something about killing the guy if he prints the photos anyway. End. He says it right here. What if I don't make a deal, Stillson? And
take
your goddamn head off. I'll have Sonny take your goddamn head off. Yep. That's pretty serious business. But I don't know if we needed that because Martin Sheen is so over the top evil from the first scene.
You're right. Like you don't have to threaten so directly like that because I already know.
This never comes back up. This plot never really comes back up at all. So I think it's kind of strange that it's in the movie at all. It doesn't really have a place in the movie, I don't think.
It is, and it's forgettable too, I think.
Yeah, like it only serves one purpose in the movie that didn't need to be served because we've already got that.
And again, if we're just trying to establish that he's an evil guy, why couldn't we have just gotten something way earlier in the movie with him kicking a puppy to death after selling Bibles, right?
Sure,
Like,
that's a perfect way to introduce that someone's evil. Puppy kicker, he's an evil son of a bitch that deserves
right,
to,
right.
that deserves to die. This is the scene that I mentioned earlier where the poem of the Raven comes back up. Johnny asks Chris, the kid that he's been tutoring, to jump ahead to the part where he, in the poem, Poe says that he will never see her again, because the Raven is ostensibly about someone who has lost a great love
Yeah.
somehow. I don't know if it ever says in specific terms. I guess she died, maybe. I don't know the poem very well. I just know what it's about, and I know that the Raven itself kind of echoes the author's feelings of, or the character's feelings, the man's feelings in the poem of regret and that he will never see her again. I guess her name is Lenore.
Lenore.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've read that.
But yeah, it's interesting that they call back to that scene there. They call back to the scene from the very, very beginning of the movie, and now it has a new context. Now that this classic poem that everyone knows.
And now he's in the position of the narrator of the poem,
Yeah.
where he's lost his love, and here he sees her right after hearing the poem, and probably thinking about that. And she's married to... Who is this guy exactly? He's just a campaign guy for Stilson?
Both of them are campaigning for Stilson, and he had just came up to Johnny's house by chance, trying to sell him, give him some literature or something like that. And Sarah happens to come up, and she's like, "Oh, it's my husband. This is who I'm married to. This is who stole me from you, basically.
This is the guy that I cheated on with you
Yeah,
a little while back."
Please don't say anything. She's winking really hard the whole time. That was cool. That time we never had sex, right?
Right.
That was cool when I sent you off in a rainstorm.
Are
and
you seizuring? What's wrong with you?
It's the coma. It's messing with my eye. That's my best. I'm sorry. That's my best walking.
That's pretty good.
But this moment right here, I really like. Like, this is one of the moments in the movie that I think feels really causal, where you go
He
from
just kind of bends over at the door and...
Yeah, you go from a scene where the boy's talking about, he's reading The Raven, which now has a new context with the great lost love. The great lost love then comes to the door. She goes away. His character is crying. The boy is there trying to comfort him. He hugs the boy to get comfort and then has a vision.
Yeah, it's all very... real sound, like I believe every moment that happens.
Right. It's how a story should be told. It's linear, it's causal. It's this
I'm not
happens,
sitting there going, "Oh, that was okay."
Yeah. Like I can't remember where I heard this quote, but it's a quote about storytelling, and it's that if your next story beat is "and then," you're doing it wrong. It should be "so then." If you can connect
that makes sense.
If you can connect everything in your story with "so then,"
so then this happened. So then this happened.
Then you're doing it the right way.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that there shouldn't be surprising moments in a story, and if everything is perfectly connected, then I don't think that you can have super surprising moments like that. But I think at least for major plot points and stuff, you shouldn't be like, well, that was out of the blue.
Right.
It should be something that flows nicely, and this movie definitely does. And we're about to get the best line in the movie.
Yeah, we've
made it. Are we at 100% walking yet?
At this very moment, he's 99%.
We haven't been keeping very good.
We haven't
tally.
been keeping tabs on how walking he is, but he is 99% walking. And
I mean, he's got the popped collar, he's got the glassy eyes, the hair, the Jell-O mold.
The Jell-O mold hair, the David Cronenberg hair.
He's stuttering.
The cane, the limp, everything, and he's about to go over the edge. Boom! Oh, the ice is gonna break. It's amazing.
What's interesting that I just noticed? is we just came out of a scene a minute ago where the bad guy, quote unquote, hit a glass jar of something off a table in an angry way before he yelled a line.
He did. That's
Nobody's going to mess with me,
that's an
or whatever
interesting
he
parallel
said.
there.
And then right here we have our protagonist hit a glass jar of something and shatter it right before he yells a line.
That's interesting. I've not noticed that before. That's great. Very cool. Yeah, so he has officially reached critical mass of Walken. He's 100%
Right.
Christopher Walken
Critical
now.
mass, is that what you
Critical mass of Walken.
Okay.
And he's got like the bags under his eyes and everything. I think I said it before. He is he is just incredibly iconic to me. Like I think had this movie been more popular, had been more like long lasting, kind of lasted really past the test of time, I guess, as they say. I think the character of Johnny Smith would really go down as one of those iconic, great characters. Because he looks the part. I mean, look at him. Like he's the whole package.
Yeah.
Like he's got a costume and he's got a weird limp and a walk and a strange cadence to his voice and an incredible actor, giving him, life. I really, really like Johnny Smith is one of my favorite characters in fiction of all time. I think he's just amazing, especially played by Christopher Walken, which is strange when you hear things like Stephen King's pick for Johnny Smith was an actor by the name of Bill Murray.
Oh, that's weird.
And that's why we don't let Stephen King direct movies more than once.
Yes, true. True. That is why.
But I kind of...
Didn't he try to write the script for this? Did we already talk about that?
We didn't talk about that. He did. The guy who wrote the script for this movie is a screenwriter by the name of Jeffrey Boehm, who wrote movies like The Lost Boys, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2 and 3, and a really awful movie called The Phantom, starring Billy Zane in a terrible purple suit.
Huh.
Yeah, not a good movie.
Okay.
But they gave Boehm the script first. He was the initial scriptwriter on the first draft. He turned in the draft. They didn't like it. The producer didn't like it. It's a really famous old Hollywood producer by the name of Dino De Laurentiis. He didn't like it, so they gave the script writing duties to Stephen King himself. And Stephen King turned in a script that De Laurentiis apparently rejected and said it was too involved and convoluted, which is kind of a jab at...
Did you see that Danny's dragon eggs were on the table here?
I did see Daenerys' dragon eggs. This shot right here where Danny calls, or not Danny, I hate you. What have you done to me? Johnny calls Chris and Chris picks up the phone, but Johnny doesn't answer.
Is that a callback to when the doctor called his mom?
Yes, when the doctor, Dr. Weizak, called his mom to confirm that she was still alive, and to kind of confirm Johnny's power. What the doctor says at that point is that it's not meant to be. Now, the interesting thing about that
gift is not meant to be,
and this is
it's not natural.
I think so. I think that's when that happens earlier in the film when he says it's not meant to be. That's why I didn't talk to her. That's the first sense of balance that you feel in the film, and I think that that's a very strong through line. Is that Johnny may be changing what is destined to be,
but we aren't really getting those like usually in a movie where someone messes with the past or messes with the future or something like that, usually we get like a consequence that, you saved her life, but then that means that this house full of puppies exploded.
But there is a price for Johnny. The moment
the price is that he's dying?
Well, the price is not only that he's dying, but the moment that he wakes up from the coma with this newfound ability, he's lost his ability to walk like he once had. He's lost the great love in his life. He's lost the ability to drive a car or the desire to drive a car. He's lost a lot of things. He's lost his job. He's lost a lot. And as a replacement for that, he has this ability. Now, the more he uses the ability, the more he loses, so much so that it appears that he is dying, and that's what we saw.
But I don't feel like we're getting negative consequences for like the other boys still died in the skating accident, which parallels the skating accident, which was cut from this movie, which was a part of the the book. But
Yeah.
The other boys, it said 2 drowned on the newspaper. It said 2 drowned in skating accidents. So the other boys that the kid who he was tutoring would have gone to play hockey with, they still died, I guess. But I don't see anything negative happening as a consequence to him saving the one kid, though.
I think it's that the more he uses it, the more
It's just harder on him.
it's just harder on him. I think that this
We see him laying down a lot more now.
Yeah, I think that this is a karmic world, that the movie takes place in a karmic world where there is a balance and there is a price that you pay for, this ability or this curse, I guess you can call it. But right now he's at the political rally because he looks out his window and he sees Sarah at the political rally, and he goes across the street to I guess talk to her. Stilson arrives and he's just about to encounter Stilson accidentally.
Right, and he's going to get the vision that he didn't get before
get that
because he got a
handshake.
political campaign button instead
Right.
of a vision.
He's going to get that handshake that he's been missing out on, and we're going to get an
we're gonna
amazing
get the
scene.
third best line in
Amazing
the
scene.
movie.
Yes, absolutely. Have we talked about the music at all?
I don't think so.
I really like the music in this movie. It's by a man named Michael Kamen, and he composed the music in London, I guess where he was living at the time. And when he would play the score on his piano at home, his neighbors complained and said that, that they couldn't sleep when he was playing the music. And not only that, but it was giving their family nightmares.
So he was like,
Perfect.
yes,
I got it.
got it.
And it's a great score. You can actually find it. You can't find a lot of Michael Kamen scores on the iTunes Music Store, but you can find this one completely unabridged. I downloaded it as soon as I found it on there. I bought it. Spent real money on it.
Did you?
No BitTorrent for me.
Real money.
And it's wonderful.
Where are they in this vision?
I think they're supposed to be at Camp David,
Camp David?
which is a vacation spot or not a hideaway, but it's where
For
the president.
presidents?
Yeah, the president goes there
Oh,
to
okay.
do stuff.
That's cool.
But this is a future
I
premonition.
wish I had a Camp
I
David.
guess all premonitions are future, right? That was redundant. So this is a premonition of Stilson as the president of the United States, ordering a general to give his confirmation handprint, and Martin Sheen is just chewing scenery, just snacking on the scenery in this.
Just snacking.
Just snacking. Which is really funny to see him in this, because if you've ever watched The West Wing, he plays the president in that show, and also in the miniseries Kennedy that came out this same year as this movie. So you see the miniseries Kennedy, and then you watch The Dead Zone, and you see very different examples of the president of the United States as played by Martin Sheen. I guess he does have kind of a presidential quality to him. But I think that there's just a wonderful mashup waiting to happen of his insanely wise and benevolent president from the West Wing and this
that
scenery
guy
chewing
who
maniac.
is standing with him, is that his same bodyguard?
Yes, it is. And this is the best line in the movie, where he tells Mr. Vice President, Mr. Secretary, the missiles are flying.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
It's great stuff. Really, really great stuff.
And then Johnny's like, well,
But
that's a problem.
back to the score. This is actually the one of 3 movies.
By the way, who are the missiles flying at?
I think in the book it says Russia, but they never say in the movie. This score is one of only 3 scores for a David Cronenberg movie that is not done by Howard Shore. Howard Shore has been doing David Cronenberg's movies since all the way back to Shivers, I think, his very, very first films. And this is one of only 3 that he didn't do, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because it's a really, really great score. And like I said, I've been listening to it a whole lot, basically on repeat for the past 2 weeks. and I really like it a lot. Do you like the score?
Yeah, I guess so. It's not really a Jessica-ish score.
We describe things as Dustin things and Jessica things quite a bit on this show, don't we?
Yeah, it sounds a little too 80s, 70s for me. Like I can
does have that kind of quality to it. Yeah.
I can hear the decade, and if I can hear the decade, then I'm probably, unless for some weird reason I am in the mood to hear that decade, then it's unlikely that I'm going to want to listen to something that sounds like a when.
I think I mentioned it before, but in the scene in Camp David that we just saw, that was one of the scenes that Christopher Walken's helpless, apparition was supposed to be
there, but he wasn't.
It would have been the third.
I like it when he's in the visions.
I do too.
I like it more. It adds another dimension to it. Like,
yeah, it adds another dimension to his psychology and how it affects him when he has to watch these people do it, like as though it's really happening right before him. I think.
I still. What's your favorite vision? And
the fire.
The fire one.
The fire.
Yeah,
the fire in the room is the best. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the Camp David scene because it's super, no pun intended, campy. And I love the line, but technically speaking, like the way it's shot and the way it's presented, like him in the bed and the bed is on fire and just all that stuff, it's so great. And the boiling fish bowl and then that exploding. Yeah, that's a really, really great scene.
Poor fish.
Poor fish. Poor delicious cooked goldfish. But in this scene right here, we mentioned the 3 scenes before that comprise the man versus man conflict, which is a very, very small part of this movie. This is the second of those scenes. The first of the scene is he shakes shakes Stilson's hand at the rally, sees the vision.
Gets the vision.
This is the second scene where
he's debating whether or not he should kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, where Weizak asks, or Johnny asks Weizak whether or not he would kill Hitler if he could go back and if he had the chance. And Weizak said, yeah, I'd have to kill the son of a bitch. That's how he puts it. And he says, yes, of course. Which, is all that he needs. So he walks into the house and we get a...
And this is his father's house.
This is his father's house, and we get a God shot all the way through this house of him picking up the
God
rifle.
shot of the Ritz crackers.
Yes, brought to you by Quaker Oats. And he gets the rifle, he gets the ammunition, he modifies the rifle to, I guess, travel with it so it's hidden. And I guess one of the last things we get to kind of drive home the Christ metaphor is the plaque on the wall when he walks in. You blink and you miss it. I actually had to pause to get what the plaque says, but the plaque on the wall next to the door reads, and it even looks as though he looks at the plaque for a second when he walks in. It says, "Christ is the head of this house, the unseen guest at every meal, the silent listener to every conversation."
And that's kind of him during the visions.
It is. The ones where he's present for, he's helpless and he can't do anything in those visions, but he sees.
Yeah.
And he listens. And that's kind of the concept of an omniscient God being, is that he at least is everywhere and sees all things.
Even if he can't do anything about them.
Can't, yeah. We're not talking about an omnipotent God, but at least an omniscient God. So that leads us to what will be our last scene of the movie, which, just like the rest of the movie, I mean, the movie has closure. I think all of the characters get closure, and the movie feels like it has closure. But
who's he writing this letter to? Is
Sarah.
This to Sarah?
To Sarah. When it's over, it's over. And as soon as all of the characters get their closure, the movie ends and just cuts to credits. And it gives you kind of this cold feeling, like the movie's just like, that's it. There's no more to it. It's not, they don't soften the blow or anything, which is so Cronenberg.
Yeah.
It just goes along with his style.
But I'm okay with that. Like,
his artful lack of style, in that everything is presented at face value. And no more, no less. Face value. That's what you get. And I love that about him as an artist. He is, I think to me, he is one of the great film auteurs. I really, really think so. So he's here at the meeting hall. He's going
I think
to.
he's in Cambridge, it said.
Is that what it said? So he's going to break into the meeting hall and he's going to camp out in the balcony with the rifle looks short. It looks like he took it apart, I think.
Yeah.
He took apart the rifle to travel with it. But yeah, he does become a martyr. And like we said, you've got these... Religion plays a part on different levels in this movie in such a way that I don't think you could call it simple or trite or anything like that, because I think that maybe it doesn't have a specific message about religion, but it's using it as a narrative tool. It's using it as a tool that I think is really interesting. And I wonder where that painting went of... I wonder where that is today, the painting of
Stillson.
Of Martin Sheen as Stillson with the hard hat on and the American flag behind him. I would love to have that on my wall.
Would you?
That's an amazing piece of movie memorabilia.
That's not going on our wall. It's not going to happen.
I think that's really good stuff. Now, before this scene plays out, we got Stillson arriving at the meeting hall and Johnny's waiting out in the balcony. I have watched this movie a lot, but preparing for the podcast, rewatching it again after a couple of years of having not seen it, I misremembered the ending. And
did you think he killed him?
Yeah, I misremembered Johnny actually succeeding in his assassination attempt and killing Stillson. But that's not what happens. I think the ending is much better than that. Yeah, much better than that actually. But
because that's the easy place to go to is to kill him and feel like he did the right thing and he got it and he right. But we can still get that closure because he's going to have his last vision. He doesn't have to kill him. He does worse than kill him. He shames him to death. He ruins him. That's worse than killing him.
And then he kills himself.
Right.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah, it's worse.
Even more satisfying.
Right.
Because let's be real.
Kiss the baby.
Oh, well, he says I'm supposed to do that. He's at least aware, right?
Kiss the baby that you're going to use as a human shield.
This is... So all of Stephen King's books take place in Maine, is that right?
Not all of them.
Or a great deal of them?
A lot of them do because he was born there and he lives there now. He's lived there for a while.
I think this also takes place in Maine in a city called Castle Rock. They actually refer to the serial killer before as the Castle Rock Killer. But other stories of Stephen King's that take place in this city are Stand By Me, Cujo, The Dark Half, and Needful Things.
Wow.
So this is a happening town.
It is,
where
man.
Just crazy, awful shit happens all the time.
You better be careful in Castle Rock, Maine.
That's not a place you want to live, I don't think.
Is that a real place?
I think it is. Is it? Well, maybe not.
I don't know. I've been to Maine, but only as a child.
I mean, either which way, even if it's created, it's if all of his stories take place here in Stephen King's universe, Castle Rock, Maine is not a place to be.
you should just not visit there. Do you know, I don't know if we'll have time to talk about it, but do you know where Stephen King gets, or where it is said that he got his inspiration from for his dark stories?
A lamp in the office of his editor? No, that's a Family Guy joke. Nowhere.
Aren't you funny?
I'm so funny. There's a storm going on outside, which I think is apt for us talking about.
Is it a storm or is it Matsuri? Because I'm pretty sure.
A festival? I think it's a storm. I think we've got some thunder going on.
Well, we did have a typhoon last night, which is why we chose not to record last night.
Oh, the photographer taking all the pictures of Stillson here is Martin Sheen's son, I think.
Getting shot in the hand would really suck.
Oh, yeah, it would be
I mean, it
awful.
would suck to be shot anywhere. Anyway, so he His father left when he was a kid under the pretense of going to buy a pack of cigarettes. And later in Stephen King's life, in an attic, he went upstairs and he found some books that were his father's, and he found a copy of H.P. Lovecraft's The Lurker in the Dark. And just based on the cover, he was like, yeah, I feel a connection. And after he read it, he said, I knew that I'd found home when I read that book. However, though, now he talks.
This is the final vision before we don't
get our
miss
final
it.
of picking up the gun.
Stilson has grabbed him and asks, like, who's working for you? Who are you working for? And who are you? And he grabs his hand and
he gets a vision of Stilson holding a baby up to shield himself.
we get to see the Newsweek magazine that shows
and we saw the reporters
Stilson,
sitting there taking the pictures too.
Played by Sheen's son. And Stilson kills himself in that vision, and Johnny knows that
he's like, okay,
his work is done.
I did it.
He saves the world, but
Right.
he loses his life to do it. There's actually an alternate ending to the movie where Johnny survives, and then he predicts a knife attack against his girlfriend while he's in the hospital, and then he slips back into a coma and dies.
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm glad this is the ending instead.
Oh, dear.
This is a much, much better ending.
Oh yeah, but they do this crappy thing here at the end with her.
Yes.
Where
Yes. So if you listen carefully, if you're able to pick out this kind of thing, this is the last shot of the movie. She's going to be hugging Johnny, and when her mouth is obscured against his jacket, you can hear her say the line "I love you," but it's very clearly ADR'd. It's very clearly recorded and dubbed over in there. Here it is, right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds very weird, and not just
It was put in later,
but like her delivery of it and everything. It's just
I love you. Yeah.
I love you. You gotta get really close to the mic. I love you.
They did it. Thanks. I'll love editing that out. No, I'm not going to. But they did that to give Johnny more closure, and I don't think that he needed that.
Yeah, I don't like
I
it.
think it was really
I don't like it at all.
unnecessary.
Okay, so before we finish, I want to finish telling you where the Stephen King, right? He talks about getting his inspiration for his dark, scary novels and short stories from like not getting his inspiration, but that's where it started, was from finding this H.P. Lovecraft book when he was a kid.
Right.
But he talks about that. He's openly spoken of that before. He talks about it, I think, in his book called On Writing, something like that. But which he was writing before and after the car accident that we talked about in 1999. However, though, something happened in his life when he was a child that he doesn't cite. But apparently when he was a kid, he saw one of his friends struck and killed by a train.
Wow.
And
That's dark.
walked home. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know exactly what happened, but I guess he walked home from this and went into the house and stuff. And his mom, or maybe his dad, was still around, so maybe his dad too. They didn't know what was wrong with him because he was in shock and he was kind of speechless. And they didn't find out till later that he had witnessed it. He says he has no memory of it,
Wow.
but
That's
but
weird.
I mean, that's definitely, even if he doesn't have a memory, like that's
that'll shape you
subconsciously
for the rest of your
gonna,
life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
you know.
Wow, that's kind of amazing. Okay. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of on that up note.
Yeah.
That'll bring us to the end of another episode of the Popcorn Poops podcast. As usual, you can find us on the internet on our blog at popcornpoops.blogspot.com. You can also send us a question or a comment. Just send us an email at thepopcornpoops@gmail.com. You can also send us a question or a comment on Twitter or on Facebook. On Twitter, we are under at Popcorn Poops, and you can just search for us on Facebook. Please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook for updates to the show and all of the little hints that we give out about, our forthcoming episodes. We try to make them fun. We try to make it fun for you. Where can we find your personal Twitter account on the internet?
I am at Jesse Casper.
And I am at Dusty Cram Cram, and that will bring us to the end. So we will see you guys next week.
We are the Popcorn Poops.